Good afternoon, and welcome to the Wednesday afternoon conference call with Trusts Unlimited. This is Jim George speaking. I'm the non-attorney spokesman and facilitator for Trusts Unlimited, and I'd like to thank all of you for taking the time to listen to this call, particularly those of you calling in for the first time and those that will be listening to the replay over the next 24 to 48 hours. We like to move quickly through our calls. This will again be a rather short call. We're not going to be able to get into the program we've put into place or have a Q&A this afternoon, and I'm going to explain why that's the case. For those of you calling in for the first time, I would suggest that after listening to this rather brief call, you go to our call of February 9th or February 16th. One of those calls, if not both of them, has a detailed discussion of the program we put in place to assist you, and that'll be identified at the beginning of the call. So I'm not quite sure which of those calls was the full call, but again, if you'll check out the call on the 9th and the 16th, you'll get the total program. But there's a lot going on that I do want to talk about today. We seem to be in a very good place. First, by way of disclaimer, Trusts Unlimited is not the purveyor of the dinar and these other currencies. We're not advocating either the sale or purchase of these currencies, but as rather substantial currency holders ourselves, we're sharing with you the information we believe to be relevant. And, of course, the most relevant piece of information would be the window for the potential reset of the dinar and these other currencies. At present, it looks as though the dinar could revalue literally at any time. Frankly, I'm shocked that I was not contacted about a call today from Europe, given some of the information that I've received. But they always seem to have a call during our call, which is noon Eastern Standard. I guess that's because it's the best time for a global call. It puts it at the early evening in Europe and the Middle East and early morning in the West Coast here in the United States. So it just falls to around noon our time, which is, of course, when we have our calls. But I did receive an interesting call. One of our clients happens to be an officer, a rather high-up official at a major U.S. bank. He is a client of ours, and from time to time, I've discussed his thoughts with him. He also listens to our calls, and he has heard me say on a number of our calls that once the dinar reinstitutes in country, I would be in a position then, with the currency being functional in Iraq, to call the various major banks and try to work out a deal for reduced transactions fees and the best street rate available for our clients. And this individual actually contacted me to talk about an arrangement with his bank. And again, he's with a rather large bank. So that to me is a very good indicator that we might be getting close to a reinstitution of the currency. We also have the IMF that recently released a statement saying that they believe that it was time for Iraq to move forward with the reinstitution of their currency. The Parliament has actually hosted the Minister of Finance, Alawi, to hear what he had to say, and he gave what I consider to be rather lame reasons for wanting to postpone the reinstitution of the currency, but Parliament made it clear that they want him to move forward literally now with a change in the exchange rate. The Sadrists, which of course is the coalition that controls Parliament at this point, is literally demanding a return to the pre-2003 glory days, and that means an exchange rate north of $3. So this is all very good news. Then we have the Security Council for the Development Fund for Iraq. It was established in 2003. Basically, it froze and captured Iraqi funds that were in foreign banks. And over the years, it has gathered smuggled funds that have come out of Iraq. And all of these funds have been earning interest since 2003. And they released a statement saying that Iraq, having reached a position of stability, it's time to change the exchange rate. So Everything is moving toward the exchange rate. But, of course, we still have the usual suspects who, for a number of reasons, are arguing against the reinstitution either now or ever. One group, which is semi-legitimate from my perspective, says that they are concerned that the money supply is the issue. There's just too many dollars, a dinar out there. I've addressed that at length. I don't think that at the end of the day that's a legitimate argument. Another argument is they haven't sufficiently diversified their economy. They're in the process of doing that, and one can make the argument that the failure to reinstitute the currency is actually retarding their ability to diversify their economy. Then there are those that are concerned that all the white paper reforms are not fully implemented. But of all the groups that are really insistent upon the reforms of the white papers, the Sadrists at this point are literally demanding the return to the pre-2003 exchange rate. There are those that want the release of the criminal files, and that's part of the white paper reforms. The last issue is one, unfortunately, we suffer with in this country, and that is that Iraq, like this country, recently ran up a substantial amount of deficit. And in our country, what did we do? We printed a lot of money. We devalued our own currency. This is called monetizing the debt. In other words, you create a lot of currency, devaluing that currency, and then you pay off the debt with a devalued currency. So it's basically a form of theft. It's a cheap way of paying off your debts. We borrowed the money when it was worth a lot more. We're paying it back, those loans, when the money's worth a lot less. And that's actually an argument that some people in Iraq are making, that they need to keep the currency exchange rate where it is vis-a-vis against the dollar in order to monetize the debt. So once again, it's nothing more than sanctioned theft. But unfortunately, Keynesian economics is basically, it's a kleptocracy, and that's their argument. But at the end of the day, I don't think those arguments are going to hold. So for all of the reasons I stated, I really do think that there's a legitimate chance for the currency to reinstitute at any time. Now, going back to what happened with the Kuwaiti dinar, the same thing happened. There was argument, there was back and forth. Some of the very same arguments were made, and then out of nowhere, the thing popped, and hopefully that's what's going to happen here. Now, there's one other issue I want to address on this call, and that is that I've received a lot of calls in the last few days concerned that that Putin's invasion of the Ukraine is going to affect whether or not there's a reinstitution and revaluation. I guess there are arguments that can be made both ways, but I'll tell you what my take on it is. There's two issues here. There's the moral issue, and there's the economics issue. The moral issue is pretty clear. It's reprehensible that a sovereign nation would be invaded, a nation that posed no threat whatsoever to any of its neighbors. And that's what's happened here. Now, Putin has talked and written ad nauseum about his desire to reconstitute the old Soviet Union, with the Eastern Europe being the satellite nations. And it seems as though that's what's happening here. Now, last night we were witness to the State of the Union speech, which, as far as I'm concerned, was failed to provide anything of substance with regard to this issue and a lot of other issues. Biden kept saying that the United States stands with the Ukraine. Now, that's political speak for we're not going to do anything. The damage has already been done, because the United States funded this invasion. On day one, Biden shut down the Keystone Pipeline, reducing the production of and refinement of petroleum. He proceeded to stop all drilling on public lands. He proceeded to shut down all of the drilling in Anwar. And then he approved Russia's Nord Stream 2 pipeline to Western Europe. And this pipeline intentionally circumvented Ukraine. I guess Putin knew what his intentions were. He knew that he would be going into the Ukraine. He knew that he would be debilitating the country economically, and so he didn't want his pipeline destroyed, so he just circumvented the Ukraine. So Putin went on to remove the Rothschild banking system from Russia, which actually is a good thing. The Russian government now is purchasing cryptos. They're purchasing a substantial amount of gold, and they've now announced that their ruble, which has plummeted, is now going to be backed by gold. So he's going to try to prop up his ruble by making it Basel III compliant, which would be a good thing globally if it wasn't for his intentions with the Ukraine, perhaps some of the Balkan nations, Poland, and other nations. So that's not good as well. From perspective of those of us that have dinar, what's going to happen is I think that the only thing the West can do is probably sanction Russian oil in the West, which might open up new customers for Iraqi oil, but again, at what cost? The loss of the Ukraine and the potential for war. In addition, sanctions against Russian oil are probably going to do very little to dissuade Putin for the very simple reason the Chinese who want the oil will simply stop buying it from everyone else and buy it from Russia. So it's a mixed bag. From the perspective of the United States, we have all of the wrong people in charge. They don't know what the hell they're doing. Frankly, that speech last night was an embarrassment, and that's probably why the United States is no longer in the conversation. The Europeans, particularly Germany and France, are stepping up, and they're not having that much direct involvement with the United States government because they see them as ineffective, and they're right. But again, back to our situation, Iraq is moving in the right direction. All of the officials in Iraq want to continue in the direction that they're moving. The IMF, the international agencies, the Bank of International Settlement, the Council for the Development of Iraq, they all want Iraq to move forward. They want to see the revaluation of the currency. We want to see the revaluation of the currency. And I would not be surprised if we woke up one of these days very shortly to see that the currency not only went to a float, but might actually go to a number north of $3. The view for a long time was, well, they'd reinstituted one-to-one with the U.S. dollar, and then at that point move back to, say, maybe $3.46, $3.50, maybe north of $4. But a lot of the intelligentsia today seems to think that they're just going to forget to float and just go right to a number north of $3, back to the pre-2003 rate, which actually would be a Basel III compliant rate. You could argue that $5 per dinar would be the actual Basel III compliant rate. And even if it just goes to $3.50, in my opinion, we could be at $5 within a matter of weeks. So that's where we find ourselves. The only last thing I'll mention is we've now entered March, which is the last month in a given quarter. So a reinstitution and revaluation late in a quarter can be problematic from a taxation standpoint and from an exchange standpoint. So, it is what it is, and we will have to make whatever moves we need to make, however quickly we need to make them. We have no control over the rate or the date, but we just have to be vigilant and be prepared to move quickly if this thing were to pop late in a given quarter. That's where we find ourselves now. Again, I would suggest those of you calling in for the first time to go to our call. You can go to YouTube or you can go to our website. Go to our call of the 9th and the 16th to get an overview not only of the program we've put in place, but of the constitutional reasons for establishing our trust package as soon as possible, certainly pre-RV. Now, to go to our website, you would go to trusts with an S, unlimitedllc.com. Our email address is trustswithunlimitedllc@gmail.com, and our phone service is 307-274-4122. We've got additional people working with our paralegals. We're getting these trusts out quickly. We were getting them out within 5 days. Now we're getting them out within 3 days. We want to make sure you get your trust package for all of the reasons that we will state to you clearly. If you go to our website and look for the information or contact us for our initial no-obligation package, I would strongly suggest you get that package. It has a lot of information about us, about the evaluation, about these trusts. You can review the package. If you decide to proceed, everything you need is included in the package. If you have further questions, you can contact us by phone or email. We'll be happy to answer your questions and help you in any way, and there will be no consultation fee. So thanks very much for listening to our call. We will be back next week. Certainly, if something of a dramatic nature were to happen between now and then, we'll try to get out an emergency email and schedule an emergency conference call. But failing that, we'll be back next week, noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. Thanks for listening, everyone. Have a great week. Bye-bye.